So we've had race day for the Baku Grand Prix, and actually I think that's what the weekend should really look like, a race day. I mean, to be honest, it was much better than the sprint race. Probably not one of the best Baku Grand Prix we've ever seen, but some decent action from there. It was a solid start from Charles Leclerc, got away well. All the top three sort of kept their positions really. No really big movers right up at the front, but it was Lance Stroll who made up 2 places from his start place. Kevin Magnussen up 3, and George Russell started 11th, was up to 9th with the early moves there. The big loser on that one was actually Valtteri Bottas. He lost 5 places, got a poor start, and then got sandwiched in at the exit of turn 2, and then lost 2 or 3 more places, and that just was the start of a horrible afternoon for Valtteri on that one. And then we got up to about lap 9, and then we started seeing cars really struggling for tyres. We see a couple of drivers coming in, even from as early as lap 7, on these medium tyres. There was a couple that started on the hard tyres. That would be Valtteri, actually. He started on the hards, as did Ocon and Hülkenberg, who both did pit lane starts. They both started on the hards. Hülkenberg, because he wanted to change his setup. He really struggled in the sprint race yesterday, and therefore wanted to change setup, and that was breaking the parc fermé regulations, meant he had to start at the back, and he started on hards. But yeah, like I said, about lap 7 there onwards, and we've seen Hamilton and Verstappen pit on lap 10. But at the same time, we had Nick de Vries, who went off with a clip, broke his front wheel, and that happened literally just before Max Verstappen came into the pit. So potentially Red Bull could have held off calling Max Verstappen in, because thereafter we got the first safety car because of that incident. And that really cost Max Verstappen. He was leading the race at that point. Both him and Perez, despite their reasonable starts, easily passed Charles Leclerc by that stage before their first pits. It was easy moves down the DRS for both of them. And yeah, Max Verstappen came in lap 10, and lap 11 was the safety car was called. Perez came in, pitted on the safety car. Verstappen actually lost out. He lost out to Perez and also to Charles Leclerc. And that was really it for him from there, unfortunately. He made the pass on Leclerc quite easily. It was, they were just in a league of their own, Red Bull, when it come to race pace. And then it was a battle up at the front for Perez and Verstappen, and it was just nip and tuck throughout the whole race right towards the end. Verstappen couldn't really get into the DRS zone of Perez, and Perez did a brilliant job holding him off. In the safety car, though, Hamilton was the big loser. He pitted on lap 9. He was about 5th place at the time, moved back 5 places into 10th place. Carlos Sainz lost out also, and Perez was the big gainer. He moved past Max Verstappen, and actually before that he was in the DRS zone and pushing Max, so it looked like maybe there was a move on track, but that didn't really quite take place, and it's a bit of a shame we lost out that race in between the top 2 because of that. And then after that, like I said, Perez went off. Alonso was also the big gainer there. He moved up to 5th place, as did George Russell. He started 11th, and then he was up to 6th place after that safety car helped him in the pits. Leclerc gained into P2. From there onwards, though, it was a brilliant restart on the safety car for Fernando Alonso. He made the pass on Carlos Sainz. And same with Lewis Hamilton. He made up 2 places from 10th up into 8th, and then they were all on the charge from there. Lewis Hamilton then made a pass on George Russell, and then on Lance Stroll. And then was in a battle between Carlos Sainz all the way up into the end. Got into the DRS zones a couple of times, but it was just too far back to make a move on Carlos. The Ferrari of Carlos Sainz really struggled for pace throughout the racing, but that was the race really there done. And yeah, let's go through the teams for team talk. Another Red Bull 1-2. But Perez leading the way this time. He's made a master of the street circuits, and it showed again. Once he got out in front, it looked like he just managed that gap. Max Verstappen really never got into the DRS zone, which was a bit surprising. but Perez really looking after his tyres well, and the slow corners, the way he manages his tyres out of them, really suited him in this circuit, and that's where he pretty much was ahead of Max Verstappen. Verstappen faster down the straights and the medium fast corners, where Perez was faster than Perez, but that was it really, and then he managed to gap well right through to the end. Perez started in P3, won the race, like I said, passed Leclerc quite easily. It was a shame we missed out on the battle, but Verstappen pitted lap 10, the safety car came out, Perez obviously gained on that one, and that was it. Off he went. It was a brilliant race from him though, managed to keep Verstappen out. He beat him by about 2-3 seconds at the end, but they were well far ahead of the rest. About a second a lap faster they are, still the Red Bulls in race pace. But it's good to see that the Ferraris, challenged them at least over one lap in qualifying again. Now onto the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc started in P1, held off as good start, and then to be honest that's all he could do. They don't have the pace. That DRS on the Red Bull is mega, as we've seen before, and they opened that flap and off they went. And then he was in a battle just to kind of hold off Alonso, and Alonso did get quite close up until one point, about 1.2 seconds behind Charles Leclerc, but then I think Leclerc was savouring tyres at that stage, did really well, pulled away at the end about 2 or 3 seconds off Alonso, and a solid race, a podium for him. Ferrari will be glad to be back up at the front. They've had a torrid start to the season, so this is really a much needed tonic for that red team. Carlos Sainz, he just didn't have the pace. He started in 4th, got passed by Alonso with a brilliant opportunistic move by Alonso on the safety car restart, and that was it there for Carlos Sainz. Didn't have the pace to challenge Alonso thereafter, but did well to hold off Lewis Hamilton, who was charging. It was on fire actually, Lewis, but brilliant defensive work from Carlos Sainz. Managed to keep that position there from Hamilton. Onto the Mercedes. Hamilton started 5th, actually really lost out, like I said, under the safety car. He pitted just a lap before that. And then he was on a charge, brilliant 2 places on the safety car restart, great move on George Russell. Stroll helped him out a little bit by running wide right onto the start of the finish straight, which let Hamilton close right up into the back of him, and off he passed him. And then he just couldn't quite make the move on Carlos Sainz, but a good recovery from P10. The Mercedes has had a mixed weekend, to be honest. I expected them to be further up, but they've got big upgrades coming for Imola. Let's see how that one works out for them. George Russell, he started 11th, did really well at the early stage. The safety car, like I said, helped him out really well, but then lost out to Hamilton, and then couldn't quite make the move on Lance Stroll. He was in a battle with him all race, to be honest with you, and just couldn't, like Hamilton, got into the DRS but just not close enough to make the move, and a P8 finish. He'll be disappointed actually, George. He just had a really poor restart. Either he just didn't get his tyres up to temperature or whatever that was, but that really cost him. Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, absolutely mega. Started in P6, finished in P4, in a fight with Leclerc, and to be honest dragged that car where we looked yesterday and the day before. It didn't look like they were challenging up at the front, but there he was again. Brilliant opportunist move on Carlos Sainz into turn 6. We've not seen many people make manoeuvres there, but really called Carlos Sainz out cold. And then it was just Fernando brain ticking ever forever, like he always does, with the technical and getting the strategy right, calling his shots on the tyres, and it really nearly worked out for him, but just didn't quite have the pace of the Ferraris for him. Lance Stroll finished in P7, started 9th. Like I said, the good start, he made up 2 places on the first start, and thereafter he hit a wall as well. It's a bit of a scruffy race for him, to be honest with you, considering where Fernando Alonso is. He kind of want Lance Stroll to just kick in that little bit more. He's not quite been on the pace of Fernando Alonso yet. He's been, Fernando just wiped the floor with him really, but he's got a lot to learn, and he's done well so far, Lance Stroll, and just need him to push on and just get that one good result for the Aston Martin team. Next we go on to McLaren, Lando Norris. He started in P7, finished in P9. He lost place to Stroll at the start. He then dropped off back after the safety car. He was stuck in P11 for a long time behind both Ocon and Hülkenberg, who started on hards. And because everyone pitted under the safety car, they started on, and their strategy was literally just run to the very, very end like we've seen. We'll get onto them. But that was it for Lando Norris. Shame we couldn't really make an impression on both Hülkenberg or Ocon, who were on older tyres at the time as well, but just, yeah, not enough pace in that McLaren, but solid points for him in the end. Oscar Piastri started in 10th, finished in P11. He dropped back into P13 after the safety car restart. He held off Alex Albon well. He's been ill all weekend, really ill. They've lost about 3 kilos, they've said, over the weekend. Just couldn't keep any fluids down. He's got a stomach bug. So considering all that, a decent weekend for him. Shame he didn't get a point. It kind of just topped off a decent weekend for McLaren. Onto the Alpine, Pierre Gasly has really struggled all weekend. He started in P17. He ended the race in P14. He was one of the early ones. He stopped on lap 6 for hard tyres. And then he lost paces back to P15 after the safety car restart. So one of the big losers on that one. He then pitted again on lap 24. He's just really struggled for pace. But then he just ran out the back pretty much from there onwards. Pierre Gasly actually had a pit lane start and ran on the hards. He then just stayed out on the safety cars, ran right up to the end, and it was a bit crazy when he came in for the pit lane on the very last lap. All the cars are getting ready for the, you know, the podium ceremony and the Parc Fermé area, and we had media running around in the pit lane as he was coming in. So something that the FIA really need to look at. That was really dangerous. You can't be having that. You know, even up until the last lap, everybody knew that Ocon needed to pit. He hadn't pit at that point, and he'd get disqualified if he hadn't. So, you know, it was coming. How they've missed it, I'm not sure. I think they'll have a really hard look at themselves on that one. Not sure who made the decision to allow the media out onto the track to get the pictures for the final lap. But yeah, that strategy didn't work out for them, Ocon, at all. I think they were hoping for some sort of red flag or a safety car where they could get a cheap pit stop, but it didn't quite come. He finished P15. Not a great weekend for them. Onto the Haas team. K-Mag started in P16, finished in P13. He made up 3 places at the start, so a really good start for him, but then lost places under the safety car. He finished in P17 at the end. And Hülkenberg, he started from the pit lane. Like I said, he went for the setup changes, moved to a setup like K. Magnussen, but yeah, he gained moves, and he was up into P10 after the safety car and held that position right up until the end with about lap 47, 48, and then it just all unfolded. Everyone managed to get past his tyres, hit a cliff, and they were still sort of hoping for that red flag or safety car to try and get that cheap pit stop. It didn't quite work out for him, and yeah, probably a disappointing race for the Haas team. No points, finished in 13th and 17th, the pair of them. AlphaTauri, Nick De Vries, he was out on lap 11. Like I said, he caused the only safety car of the race. He's had a horrible weekend as Nick De Vries, one he wants to forget, get refreshed and start again. Yuki Tsunoda finally gets a point for the AlphaTauri team in P10. He's been Mr. P11 for a long time, hasn't he, so far this season, to finally get a point. He lost out under the safety car. He pitted just before the safety car came out, but he was steady race pace in P12, and obviously as Ocon and Hülkenberg's strategy just collapsed, he managed to gain them 2 places, and he's finally got a point. Alfa Romeo, Bottas had I don't even know where to start with him. Poor start, lost 5 places, and I don't know if that caused damage on his car, but he was constantly in and out of the pits. He made about 3 or 4 pit stops in the end, and he just ran out of the back. He finished in P18. He started in 13th as well, so it was promised for him to do, you know, well. It didn't quite happen for him. Zhou Guanyu started in 15th, but about lap 37 they called him in for car issues and out of the race for him. Alex Albon started in P12, finished in P12. He pitted on lap 8 for the hards, and that cost him again under the safety car. And he just held off. K-Mag struggled for there, but their straight line pace really helped him with that defense against K-Mag, but you kind of hope they could just stay in there, especially Albon. He's been great to get some more points for the Williams team. Didn't quite work for him this weekend. And Logan Sargent finished in P16, started in P14. He ran in P17, lost out under the safety car again. He held off Bottas, but no challenge on Zhu. But unfortunately, Zhou, DNF'd. And yeah, just a steady race at the back for Logan Sargent. Probably just glad to complete the Grand Prix for him, to be honest with you. But there we go. A much better race. I really enjoyed that a lot more than the sprint, to be honest with you. Although it wasn't a classic Baku Grand Prix that we've seen in previous years. But there was enough in there for us. But Perez wins, 2 race wins in a row. One yesterday, one today. He's on a bit of a roll, but he loves street circuits. So, let's see what he can do. Can he carry this momentum forward and actually take some sort of challenge to Max Verstappen for the title? Let's see how it pans out. We'll see you next time out in Miami in a week's time, so there's not an awful long wait. Watch out for my driver's rating video to come out soon, and then we'll have a preview of the Miami Grand Prix. Let's see how we go out in the States. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. See you on the next video. Thanks for watching.